Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us right now on iTunes, please go and leave a 5-star review. I read the best reviews every week, so long as they are 5 stars. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Cushy Dreams. It was recently 420. I was not smoking weed because I smoke CBD. That's right, boys and girls. I want to tell you guys about Cushy Dreams. Cushy Dreams offers a full lineup of premium smokable CBD. They specialize in extraordinary CBD-rich hemp flower, aka bud, in cans and pre-roll CBD joints. I prefer the joints. I just have like a couple pulls and I feel my mind and body feel relaxed. I can get on with the rest of my day. You know, if you're someone who's sensitive to THC, there's under 0.3% THC in these products. You can enjoy all the health benefits of CBD without getting high. It's cannabis that ships directly to you, and it's legal in all 50 states. Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. It's super high quality stuff. They take the artisan approach. Everything's hand trimmed, never machine trimmed. They do lots of independent lab tests to ensure compliance and purity. All this can be found on their website, cushydreams.com. And best of all, it's grown here in the USA. Each batch is slow cured for 2 to 4 weeks to guarantee maximum freshness and preserve flavor and cannabinoids. What I love about these guys is they've got tons of different strains and indica sativa blends like energy, hustle, relax, create, dream. So if you're like a before bed person or like up in the morning person, they have something for you. So go to cushydreams.com, Kushy dreams.com and get some high quality CBD. But at checkout, use promo code CMP to get 20% off every single order. Really quick, want to let you guys know about some stand-up dates. The domestic terrorist tour continues. That's right, it's me. It's just me and some friends doing stand-up in a city near you. I'll be in Wilmington, Delaware at the House of Laughs, April 23rd and 24th. Then I'll be going to Florida soon, the land of the free. Can't wait to go. I will be at the Boca Black Box, April 30th. With Esther Koo and James Altucher. It'll be that same gang on May 1st at the Lake Park Black Box in Palm Beach. Then on May 2nd, I'll be at Side Splitters in Tampa. Then to Oklahoma City, I'll be at the Bricktown Comedy Club May 9th. And then the Comedians of the Compound will be in Austin May 14th and 15th. I know that's going to be a big, fun, raucous hang. Am I even saying it right? Who knows? I'm just trying to learn one new word a day. I'm so excited to have this guy on the podcast today. He is the founder of the Liminal Order. He's an author. He's what I would call a necessary daddy of modern times, just because he's a wise man with lots to say. Jack Murphy, welcome to the show.
Wow, a needed daddy of the modern times. That's a new one. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good to be here.
You are a needed daddy. I do another show called The Wet Spot. It's on Compound Media. It's a sex, dating, relationship advice show. And I was supposed to, and sometimes I'll have porn stars on, sometimes I'll have comedians. It's just like a fun show. And I was supposed to have this porn star on. Her name was Mary Moody, and she was all sent to do the show. She was going to Zoom in. And then, you know, a few hours before the show, her agent or her publicist contacted me like, first of all, she didn't like a lot of my tweets. She didn't like that I didn't seem to support Black Lives Matter. But most of all, she did not like that I retweeted you, Jack Murphy.
Get out of here, man. Well, now you know why I asked you what we were going to talk about.
Right. And I was like, wow, that made me, it was a high compliment. It made me even more excited to talk to you. Because I know that I sometimes have that effect on people. Like there's certain people just won't do my show if they hear I'm involved or like even a stand-up show. I caught a lot of shit after January 6th because I was just there covering the protests, covering everything that was happening. And you were in a similar predicament, called all sorts of names just for covering protests.
Indeed. You know, that's funny that a porn star decided not to come on your show because you retweeted me when I am actually on the record as being an advocate for female agency, and I believe in personal choice and personal liberty. And I've often defended people's choices to take whatever kind of employment that they want. And that's funny that she thought that I was such a bad guy when I'm out there advocating for her to do her thing.
Yeah, I want it's wild. It's the judgment is off the charts. And I think, you know what, I'm not going, maybe a few years ago I would have been like, no, please, like, let me convince her, please do the show. And now I'm just like, you know what? A lot of these woke people are just shooting themselves in the foot. They're taking themselves out of opportunities. It's like compound media is like almost all male subscriber base. Lots and lots of men willing, waiting with dicks in hand, would love to meet you, would love to know you, would love to contribute to your OnlyFans or whatever wares you're selling. And it's like, you know what? These people are going to see themselves out of opportunities. I'm not going to stop them.
Well, you know, the thing about the woke is that the circle will always get smaller, right? So at the end of the day, the woke circle is going to be so tight that everyone on the outside, it will be an incredibly diverse group of people, while everyone on the inside will be incredibly undiverse, whatever you want to call it. And so it's interesting to me when people are freshly doubling down on this, because it is a shrinking environment as people become more aware of what they're talking about, what it really means, as more families find out that their 8-year-old daughter has to sit through a struggle session at school. These are the things that are going to change people's minds, and that coalition is not getting any bigger. I don't think they have a control right now, but they're not like converting people, right? So it seems like a sinking ship. Hopefully, unfortunately, it may take 30 or 40 years for it to sink, but one day it's gonna.
Yeah, and I'm always interested to hear about different folks who like get canceled and come back. I myself, I feel like I've been canceled like 4 times already. Could you give a little bit of background as to what happened with you? Because you weren't always somebody who spoke out on issues of like masculinity and culture. You weren't always commenting on society. You used to work at a school. You were like a regular guy. You were a Democrat. I as well. I was also a Democrat. One of my many millions of day jobs was working at a school. But how, you know, if you want to give a quick background to sort of like your first big canceling and how that kind of shaped who you are now.
Yeah, sure. So I was very active, like on forums and stuff in I guess, what was that, like mid 2000s, early 2010s. And I made some friends there. And eventually those friends decided to move on to Twitter. And we started checking out Twitter. And I was just a nobody using a pen name that wasn't my real name. And I was just, you know, zero Twitter followers, right? And, you know, we were just having fun and just tweeting about nonsense and sex and BDSM even we were talking about. And I wrote an article.
Clean subjects, yeah.
Right? You know, I wrote an article actually that was satire and meant to be triggering. And it came back to actually be part of the cancellation. I wrote an article about basically female agency, which is really funny how this conversation started off, advocating for women to actually just make their own choices when it comes to their behavior in the bedroom. And this was at a time when the feminists were like really like scolding women for making choices, which was ironic to me because I thought feminism was all about people making choices. So that's why I sort of hammered down on this subject. Anyway, we would like make little blog posts and stuff to people, you know, and publish them. And, you know, 100 people would look at it, 200 people. And then my friends that I had, my friend Mike Cernovich, and I became friends with Jack Posobiec and Cassandra Fairbanks and that whole crew, being here in DC. And Mike and I had known each other for many years before. So I was sort of just in that circle as it was growing. And as I'm working in charter schools, I was executive director of a charter school, multiple charter schools. I was a turnaround expert. It was my job to turn around the worst performing charter schools in the city. And then after that, I became a regulator at the charter school authorizer in DC. So I was responsible for the financial regulation of like 60 different charter schools. So I had like a very legit day job, which was not even my real first career. I did hedge fund before that and real estate development too. So kind of been all over the place. And I'm doing that work at the same time I'm going to like the Deplorable, and I'm going to a Night for Freedom in New York, and I'm just hanging out with my friends. And we got photographed with Chelsea Manning. And when she showed up at this party we went to in New York, a Night for Freedom, it caused a really big to-do. And it was, you know, a progressive left icon hanging out with a bunch of like alt-right guys up in New York. And a picture of me made it onto the internet, and Antifa wanted to figure out who I was. I've seen a picture where they had the names over everybody's heads. Jack Posobiec over here, Cassandra, Will Chamberlain over here, Chelsea, and then there was a question mark over my head. So they like set out to find out who I was. And when they started doing that, they found pictures I had taken covering Antifa riots with alt-right. They found an old blog post. They found everything, and then decided to call me a Nazi and dox me to my employer. They went on their Twitter feed and they're like, "This guy working for you is a Nazi. How can you have white supremacists around children, et cetera, et cetera?" I got suspended. I got fired. Not only did I get fired, but they even went to my local Little League board where I was a Little League coach, and they got me banned from coaching Little League, coaching my son and stuff. So they made a real concerted effort to come after me when I wasn't even really in the game. I wasn't a media person. I didn't have a big following. I hadn't written a book. I didn't have a podcast. I wasn't on YouTube. I wasn't on Tim Pool all the time. None of that stuff. And it was, in fact, the doxing that made me a public figure. And from there, it was at once the passionate thing I wanted to do, which is talk about politics and culture. But at the same time, it was like the only rational thing to do. My whole life had been destroyed. My reputation was destroyed. I was in education labeled as a Nazi. You don't really come back from that. And so, I was like, all right, it's time to really just go all in on this. And that was in 2018, and here we are, 2021. I'm approaching 100,000 followers on Twitter. The YouTube channel is doing bonkers. I'm a regular co-host on Tim Pool every other week on Wednesdays. I've been able to interview just some incredible people, and wrote a book, sold very well. I'm living the life now. So the doxing was at once like the worst thing that ever happened, and also the beginning of the best thing that ever happened. So can't really complain at the end.
Maybe we owe a special thank you to Antifa for making you.
Thank you, Lacey McCauley.
Wow. It's interesting. It almost seems like the more folks I talk to that are sort of thrust into these conversations or into like, I don't know, whatever you want to call like this group. I don't know. People used to call it the intellectual dark web, but now it's just like sane people. Right. And it seems like something terrible has to happen to you in order for you to be like engaged and activated enough to be like, I'm going to fight for this. Because for me, it was like finding free speech being taken away in comedy and just people coming after me for like tweets or just silly things. Like I tell folks I hosted an LGBT comedy show at the Stonewall Inn, and then I tweeted something like it was like this parrot barking, like someone had taught their parrot to bark or whatever. Or the parrot taught itself, and I was like, "Oh, this parrot's transitioning." And then people came after me, like, "Oh, Chris, she's a woke ally. Get her out of Stonewall." It was just wild. And then ultimately, you realize, like, oh, these people are salty because I never booked them. It has nothing to do with like anything at all. But it's the left's desire. The radical left has this desire to just like ruin you. It's not that I have a problem with this one thing you said or tweeted. It's like you can never create again. And I just don't think that happy people react that way.
It's not only that they're unhappy, it's how they've been taught and how they've been trained. It's part of the manual, right? It's part of rules for radicals. You have to isolate your target, freeze them, cut them off from their friends and resources and their networks, and destroy them. It's not a surprise that this is what they do, because it's like literally in the handbook, rules for radicals. And so you can expect to see more of it, and it's not going to stop because it's part of their identity and their strategy. And it's also goes along with the critical part of critical race theory, which is about philosophy without action is nothing, right? So their whole philosophy has built into it activism. Conservatism or liberalism are ways of looking at the world and ideas and principles, but it's not like specifically designed to be a system by which you destroy other systems, which is what critical race theory is all about. And so we have to just expect that this is going to continue. And to pretend that it's not is just straight denial, because it's not a secret. It's written in their literature. That's my favorite thing to say these days. It's in the literature, because it is the way to deflect for people saying that you're a conspiracy theorist or that you're making things up or you're blowing things out of proportion. No, there is a war on men. They're determined to destroy masculinity because it is the source of the patriarchy, which is the source of all oppression. It's in the literature. I'm not making this up. And these were the things that I began to learn 10 years ago when I first started trying just to learn how to date after I got divorced. It was like, okay, I had been in a relationship for 10 years and there was no cell phones. When I met her, there was no Tinder or anything like that. I get out into being single and it's like a whole new universe. So I start reading online and like learning things. I'm like, oh, all right, maybe that's why dating is so tough these days. And you just keep pulling on the same thread. And I've now written a book and started a whole, men's group and had some really powerful conversations with important thinkers. And it's all just pulling on the same thread.
All just because you were trying to date.
All just because I was trying to date, yeah.
Did you find, Jack, that you were encountering or dating a lot of feminists when you were first back out there?
Yeah, definitely. And it was a little bit before everything got super duper woke. So most of the women were like, I'm a feminist, but they thought that just meant like I should be able to have a job, not like what feminism really means today. So there was some little education process that I did there, but I do only distinctly remember dating or coming across like a few woke ass bitches. And one of them in particular was a consent.
A woke-ass bitch.
There was a consent counselor at American University. And so within minutes, she was like dropping intersectionality on me and matrix of oppression and this and that. And it was a fascinating experience there, but I learned how to avoid them, and it usually comes up pretty quickly. I imagine dating now, though, much more challenging even than it was for me in 2010, 11, 12.
Jack, I love your website, and I think you give a lot of. So I'm going to pull up your website here, just because I'm a woman in tech now. You have all these. This is interesting. I'm reading like the titles of these blog posts that you did here, and I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. Stuff. This is what, 2015?
Yeah.
I just think a lot of this stuff is still kind of crucial to right now because I don't see a lot of men like I'll check out like advice that men are getting now, and because I don't know, I'm intrigued by all of it. Like I like to see what men are saying to men, like and what women are saying to women. And I think over the years, I'm like, okay, women that are getting their sex and dating and relationship advice out of like mainstream media, like magazines or online, that's the worst place to go, because you're getting like other disgruntled young women who haven't had success and haven't walked the walk, like can't tell you how to have a lasting relationship. But I find this advice here is very interesting. Like, you deserve to be a sex god. Does that mean you are a sex god, Jack Murphy?
Oh, well, I have made a career out of authenticity, Chrissy. So I certainly wouldn't write.
Would never lie.
I would never write about anything I didn't know. That's the first rule about writing, for sure. And so a lot of those articles are up there from like 2015 to 2016. And it's kind of weird to see them because I don't really write on those subjects anymore. And I have actually deleted quite a bit of stuff. Oh. That is at least the stuff that I'm comfortable leaving up there still today. But there's a lot of really great basic information in there about game and taking care of yourself and the basics of male-female dynamics. And, I left them up because it still gets a ton of traffic, and people still email me all the time saying that they read the stuff and it changed their life and it was powerful for them. But writing about sexual relationships was only a stepping stone, right? Like, as you begin to understand the forces that are impacting relationships and dating and mating and the marriage market and the divorce market and fertility rates and testosterone levels and why women are promoted over men and why nobody acknowledges male suffering and such, you start to learn about these things. You realize that it's even though relationships are important, these issues are much bigger. They're much bigger than any one man trying to get laid. And so my investigation, which is what all this really has been, right? All of my writing, all of it has all just been an investigation. And it just progressed through these various phases. And one of the phases was sex and relationships. And now it's, high level philosophy, the future of technology and communities, communication. It's been fascinating because along the way, I have just talked to such incredible, powerful people. And I've just had hours of one-on-one instruction from people. And so I'm proud of the fact that my content has evolved. And I feel bad for people whose content doesn't. I can't imagine, look, I saw Prince play late in his career, and he gets up on stage and he goes, y'all want to hear the hits? Everybody freaked out. And he went on to play about 50 songs, only like 90 seconds of each. And we loved it. But I can't think as an artist that's like a really exciting thing to do. So if I was talking about the same things today that I was talking about in 2015, I would just be so bored. So I don't understand when creators' content doesn't evolve. Like, haven't you fucking learned anything? Like, haven't you grown?
But I do think a lot of the things that you have written about that I read just in getting ready to talk to you still are very relevant. Like, I don't think enough men are acknowledging that they can be choosers. Like, the culture tells us, like, and I forget who I talked about this with, but like, because I just know from growing up as a woman, like the messages I was receiving, like the future is female, girl, like be picky, like never settle. And then I go through college. I'm like, okay, my parents paid all this money for me to have a career. Like I have to have a career. And so, and then feminism was presented me at a time where I was my most vulnerable. Like I think I was like in college, it was like a dry sponge, like many women. And then it's like, did I have a not so great relationship with my dad? Yes. Was I looking for something? Like, was I getting enough love? Probably not. And to me, it seemed like feminism was this perfect, like, kind of like a cultural explanation for what at the time seemed like a lack of love for me personally, a lack of personal power. You're taught like to hate the patriarchy. So it's like, it's almost like, well, if you're not feeling strong, we're not going to teach you to be strong. We're going to teach you to be strong by being a victim. Like there's strength in being a victim. Whereas like, shouldn't the teaching have been like, no, just teach men and women how to be strong. And that shows itself in completely different ways. And it's completely male strength, women's strength shouldn't have to compete with each other.
You brought up a lot of interesting points there. First, I'll tell you about my experience going from totally niche red pill masculinity writer to basically public figure where I get recognized on the street now by just like random normie people.
Well, it's your beard.
It doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt. And so it's interesting to me because I have I've been talking about some elements of that old material lately, and it's hitting a whole fresh audience now. People who actually didn't come up through red pill masculinity, blogosphere and Twitterverse. They just were like normal folks that got into politics, and then, Jack Murphy, I follow him for politics, or the Antifa riot coverage, or whatever it is. And then I start dropping in like, to me, like, common sense, old school red pill stuff. People are like, oh yeah, right, preach. And it's funny, man. The commenters on Tim Pool, they call me Uncle Based or Big Based Daddy, and like all these things.
Face
like
beard.
Giga Chad Jack, Base Jack. And it cracks me up because I feel like I'm like half as based as like I could be. And I certainly don't talk about all the issues that I used to. But these are persistent issues, like getting together, forming a family, getting, sexual satisfaction and having kids and a fruitful relationship with somebody are universal evergreen ideas. And I truly don't think things have gotten any easier out there. I'm sure it's gotten harder. And so, yeah, there's always going to be a fresh, set of eyes and ears for material like that. And thinking back when I was a kid, you were talking about the magazines and getting advice on relationships. The only place I could think of getting anything is my dad's old Playboys, where there was I think it was Ask Men, Ask Women or something like that. It was like a side-by-side spread, every issue, advice columns for men and women. And man, I read all that. And anytime you're in the supermarket store when you're a kid and there's like relationship everybody's reading that stuff. But when you read it today, what does it tell you? It's Teen Vogue telling like 12-year-old girls how to get things up their butt. Like that's not the same as like, well, you gotta be successful, and that's the irony of all of the male game advice actually, is that it really just all comes down to be better. Be stronger, be more handsome, be more stylish, be in better shape, make more money, be more confident. That will solve 99% of your female issues.
And it's the same for women too. Like when you fill your own cup, you don't expect somebody else to be the filler of your, I mean, now this is getting sexual, but like, you know what I mean? When you're your whole thing, and an extra person is just gravy. And
this is the power of a strong male figure in a young woman's life. And I mean daughter, like a dad. This is the power of the dad-daughter relationship, is that the daughter in a healthy, engaged relationship like that, her cup is filled by her father, and she feels secure and safe and loved and has the love of a man and feels no yearning for it. You mentioned earlier that you had, shaky relationship with your dad, etc. And like, man, when you're out there in the dating market, you can tell. You can tell daddy issues. I'm like a magnet for daddy issues. So you get to know them. But it explains a lot of behavior, right? Like when I was a kid, I did not have a very good relationship with either one of my parents. Neither one of them were capable of like filling me with love and confidence. I was like dating and getting with girls when I was like 13 and 14 years old. Now I look at my son who's 14. That dude doesn't think one thing about girls. And I'm like, are you sure? Did you see that girl walk by? Are you sure? And he's just like, no, I'm thinking about baseball. I'm thinking about making money. I'm thinking about this.
Wow. At 14, he's thinking about making money. Good for you.
Oh, yeah. He's got a number of side hustles that we've worked through, even publicly on Twitter, actually. It's been fun. But wow. Yeah. And, and my daughter, she's 15 and a half. She doesn't have a boyfriend. No interest. None. And I'm observing in them what like normal childhood behavior is when you have loving parents. Whereas my childhood growing up, I was a hoodlum. I was like doing drugs, sneaking out, getting arrested, dating girls really young. Like I was searching for it. And it's just an interesting and powerful statement to really remind folks why masculine energy is so important, why dads are so important, and why it's important to focus on these matters today, especially. And it's not played out, it's not trite, and it's not weird to talk about masculine energy and masculine power and how to build more of it, because we all need it. Every single one of us needs it, and they know it. The bad guys know it, which is why it is like the number one thing they want to destroy. So thanks for bringing that up, because that's a really powerful point.
Well, yeah, it's all about like, I think the idea of dissolving and breaking up families is that so government can be your daddy, or some academic Marxist woman or whomever, just anybody that's not your father or in your family that has your best interest in mind. Yeah. And that's the thing you were saying earlier about they teach you to be a victim. And of course they don't teach you to be strong, because when you teach someone to be strong, eventually they don't need you anymore. And you're like, okay, fly away. And you're happy and proud of it. And then they're out doing their thing. But when you want to control people, you don't give them the tools to become independent, happy, and healthy. No, you just teach them how to be sick and dependent. And you can clearly see that dynamic playing out. And if those are the only two things you understand about the two parties or the two polar opposites in the world today, that's it. One side wants you to be attached to them forever and need them. And the other side wants you to be strong enough that you can run off on your own and be independent and never even heard from again. Exactly. And one side also seems to want to control your emotions by constantly flooding you with protest footage and scandalous headlines and like just keep you Hotep Jesus. I just retweeted something from him today. Like if they can keep you distracted and keep you at protests, that keeps you from building your family, building your empire. And
what they're doing is injecting a false consciousness. Okay. They've injected this idea that all Black suffering is due to systems of white oppression, and until you destroy the systems of white oppression, you will not solve Black suffering. That's this idea that they put into everybody's head, when the real idea is that there is a corporate oligarchy of ultra-powerful people who don't care about anybody else's politics or anything except for staying in power and keeping you fat, sick, chained to your desk, in debt, with 3 masks on, and your kid locked up in a quarantine closet in your basement. That's the point, is to distract us all from the real class warfare, which is why Gen Xers like myself, you look like a millennial to me.
I don't identify as a millennial. Thank you, though.
Man, I was just out there in risky territory. I was walking the plank. Okay. Just kidding. So Gen Xers like myself, man, there was a moment in time at which the civil rights process had gotten to a point where like everybody was pretty chill. And that was before the wokening happened and CRT really began to take over everywhere. And so we remember, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years or something, where it just didn't matter, where you had DMX at Woodstock leading 100,000 white boys in N-word, N-word, N-word 50 million billion times, and nobody cared. Mm-hmm. And it was, that video was so striking when I saw it go around recently. When DMX died, maybe if you don't know, when DMX died, there was a bunch of videos that went around. And one of them was him at Woodstock in like 99, I think.
Wow.
And there was like 100,000 people in this field. And he's got this one song that's like N-word like 10 times and then one other word and then N-word 10 times. And so he was just putting the mic out into the crowd and they're all screaming it. And it's just a bunch of white boys. And if you fast forward to Kendrick Lamar calling a girl up on stage and putting a mic in her mouth and saying, hey, you know, rap my music. You're here at my show. You love my music. I'm putting the mic in front of your mouth. Rap my music. And she does. And she says the N-word in the flow and he stops the whole show and yells at her.
Oh my God. That's
okay.
disgusting.
So that's what those two examples right there is like, that's not that is not evidence of a straight line deterioration, which is what the radical left would tell you, that these systems of oppression have been getting worse and racism's just getting worse. No, there was a time. I lived it. I remember it. And then it got worse again. So that's why I know that the race thing is a lie. It's a false consciousness meant to make us all angry and divided and hate each other. James Lindsay talks about that quite a bit. So does Hotep Jesus as well.
Yeah, I love them both so dearly. That's why I think it's so important for men that are dads to listen to these kinds of conversations and follow you guys, because there's just not enough. There's more and more. There's getting to be more voices, but there's certainly not. You got to unplug from the mainstream, because I think a lot of you guys offer a lot of good, tips on how to be a good dad, how to be a strong man, because that's what people, it's not cool to admit that. Like, it's not cool for me to be like, yeah, I want to be with like a strong man. Like, it's not, and I would have never said that 15 years ago, right out of college. But, and I was reading one of your old blog posts, like how to know if a woman is a keeper, like she randomly bakes for you. I was like, I do that. And then it was like,
good stuff.
Another one was like, she cooks. And I was like, well, I suck at that. But if I had more time, I would do more of it. But I like that you talk about, like, it's okay for a man to be choosy. And you mentioned the entitlement of the modern woman. Do you feel like that is still a big problem? And where do you think that comes from?
Well, the entitlement is the same thing as the victim complex. It's all wrapped into one. You get told that you're the best thing in the whole world. You can do anything that you want. And if you're not, somebody's holding you back. It's the same princess syndrome, basically. I saw this really terrific meme the other day, a cartoon, where it was like some grumpy ass white girl sitting down, but like her chair was made up of all of the brown people all around the world that are making her phones, her perfumes, her porn, all these things. And she's just sitting there all grumpy, like she's got it hard, sitting on top of these people, these brown people who are basically slaving away for her personal, luxury and comfort. And
Wow.
it's that lack of understanding that is the most annoying about all of it, right? And so it's not getting easier for guys out there. And it's not, there is a stigma against talking about being a man. There is a stigma against talking about, like, teaching guys how to be successful in relationships. There's a stigma. Why is there a stigma? The stigma comes from the fact that feminism needs men to be isolated. So anything that demonstrates men coming together, sharing notes, learning from each other, supporting each other, these things all have to be shamed. They all have to be put away. They all have to be bad. You can't have the Boy Scouts anymore. You can't have your boys clubs anymore. You can't get together. And if you do, you're a loser, you're an incel, you got a small dick, or whatever it is. And, I'm uncancelable at this point, and I don't really give a fuck about what any of these other people say. So I get to talk about whatever it is that I want to talk about. And talking to guys about how to be the best fathers that they can be right now is just where I am in my life. And it's where I think I can make the most impact at this point. So that's sort of where my focus has been. But I am getting a kick out of the fact that you went through all my old stuff.
Oh, no, because probably you think like somebody like me is going to come after you on this stuff and do like a gotcha. But I find it fascinating because there's just not a lot of advice from that angle with guys, you know?
Well, sure. And, when you're younger, they just tell you, or at least I was, just be yourself, be nice, whatever. It's all bull.
Be your best self, like fill in your gaps. Like,
well, but be your best self is a lot different than be yourself. Be yourself is like, you're okay just how you are. And if you're just honest, everything will work out. That's not true, man. That's not true. It's not that you have to be dishonest, but what you have to do is be aspirational in your behavior. You have to project the fact that you're going places. You have to demonstrate motion. Women want to get with a man that's doing stuff.
do you think the same is true of guys?
No.
No.
I got in a big fight with Tim about this on his show a couple months ago. And he said, I was explaining to him, I think women definitely, and this is not my idea. Lots of people have written about this stuff. It's evolutionary psychology. Rollo Tomasi's talked about it. A million people talked about it. But women want to date sideways or up, mostly up. And men want to be taken care of. And so it doesn't matter if a woman, doesn't have the same education or doesn't have the same career aspirations. Is she loving? Is she kind? Is she fun? Is she sweet? Is she nice? Do we have a nice life together? Can we build something together? Is she going to take care of my kids? Those things don't require a college degree. They certainly don't require making assistant second vice president at the local bank or HR department at some corporation. No, not at all. But men do need to be successful. And it makes sense. And you can even see it. I've seen it play out. You don't even have to be rich. Like a woman who's dirt poor gets with a guy that has a car and she's moving up in the world, right? Like that that dynamic works at any. So it's just about your relative power at the time that you meet.
Yeah, when I met my boyfriend 6 years ago, I was like, "Wow, he has a car!" Because I lived in Queens, it was like a big deal. I was like, "Yes,
right, moving up."
Here we go.
And that's all women want. And women, I've heard some guys in the old manosphere say that women don't wait it. Women wait at the finish line, is what they say, which I think is meant to say that women don't invest in guys; they only pick winners. I don't actually think that that's true. I think women actually have a tremendous capability to see potential. And I think that women also enjoy coaxing that potential out of their men. And I think that you're capable as a man, young guys, of finding a good partner even before you have finished building out your whole career and portfolio and all that, as long as there's a path. As long as you're moving on that path and as long as you've demonstrated motion on that path, that's good. That's good enough, I think.
Do you still think it's okay for men to be slobs, but not women?
No, I've never thought that anyway.
Really? Okay. So I was reading again, this is from the old files, but it was, how to know if a woman is a keeper. And it was like, if she likes to clean, like it's okay if a guy is a slob, but it's a red, what's it called? Red flag if a woman is a slob.
You just want to make sure her standards are a little higher than yours. There you go.
Okay.
Right. No, men shouldn't be slobs, dude. And if you're at home and you're a single guy and your house is a disaster, clean that shit up. Listen to Jordan Peterson. Take care of yourself. If you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of anything. I run into guys all the time that want to change the world, but they can't take care of themselves. How are you going to change the world? You can't take care of yourself. Start with yourself. It's
a lot easier to look outward. It's a lot easier to get wrapped up in what's going on outside of your life. It's easier to point blame.
Personal accountability is a superpower these days. If you can animate yourself with energy, if you can set a course for yourself, and if you can be intentional about what you're doing, you're going to be 99% ahead of everybody. Think about all these people that just drift along the currents, bob up and down, swallowing whatever they get told, go to college, borrow a bunch of money, get a corporate job, chain to your desk. You're in debt. Now you got to work here forever. Oh, get your IRA. That's going to do it. I promise. By the way, eat 12 portions of freaking grains every day.
Yeah.
Butter's bad for you. All these things. If you listen to what they tell you, you're sick and fat and in debt and chained to a desk. That sucks. That sucks. So if you're just intentional and you can teach yourself, It's all out there. All the information's out there.
I wish I had more self-awareness like through my college years, because I remember I picked my college. I picked Fairfield U because there were so many good-looking, honestly, white boys walking around campus with the white college hats. And I was like, woo, here we go. I'm going to probably find a boyfriend and get married. But no, like a big part of that was because I was a Division I athlete and I was like practicing for hours every day. But I would say part of that was like I was like, I got to cut my hair really short and fit in with the other divers. I was like muscular, but also gained the freshman 15. It was a tough time all around. I had braces and I was like, why does no one want to date me? And then at the end, I graduate. I'm qualified to be basically an assistant and work in media somehow. Like, you know, I was a communications major. And so it's confusing messages all the way. Like, you know, I got into college. I really wanted to meet somebody and like, but I wasn't what the college guys wanted. I also had like a lot of growing up to do myself. And then, yeah, it's taken me the last 15 years to kind of like unravel my college education and then let life experience fill in. And now I feel like I'm finally awake and, you know, where I need to be. But
I mean, people get given the wrong messages. You get given the message of like date around, find somebody, you'll find somebody. No, don't date like that. Unless that's what you want, but dating like that isn't going to lead you to a marriage. Generally, it happens, but you want to court somebody and be courted. When you're in the active dating pool, it seems like everybody's this kind of same personality, but it's not. That's just where the same personality single people go, is into this like very active dating pool. You have to be much more proactive about seeking out people that are just living their lives and would be interested in courting and building a relationship, but also aren't interested in casual dating and going on 51st dates and whatnot. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were certainly time periods in my life where that was like my number one focus. Mm-hmm. And I had a ton of fun and I learned a lot about myself, but it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
And how does mind mapping play into this? If this is like something that's old you want to talk about?
No, it's interesting. Mind mapping is this ability that we have to sort of create a terrain, a visual of our people's minds that we're talking to. And you can learn things about the person you're engaged with from indirect things, like how do you respond to questions and where does their brain go when you ask a certain thing. And through getting to know somebody, it's more of just getting to know somebody, just like, oh, so what'd you watch on Netflix? You know, you have to actually like get to know somebody. And once you begin to understand about their relationship with their parents and their relationship with their siblings and their relationship history, you can really begin to understand who they are. You know, in medicine, my mom is an emergency medicine doctor. She was an ER doctor. And she told me that treating these people is mostly getting their history. It's just learning who they are and what has happened to them, what their experience has been. That's the best way to figure out what's going on with somebody now. So you really truly do have to get to know somebody. And when you do that, you can begin to have an understanding of the terrain in their head. And the important thing to take away here is that we also act defensively. Like somebody asks you a question that you know is going to lead to a subject that you don't want to discuss, for example, you will respond in such a way that redirects that energy. Okay. And when you do that, you're like putting up a barrier inside your head that the other person can't get to. And then they also have sort of a false understanding of who you are. So in order to engage in a process by which you really do get to know somebody and they get to know you, you have to not redirect energy in this defensive way. And you have to be conscious about the questions and the style in which you're getting to know somebody. And it's not something that you do half drunk at a bar with somebody you just met.
Right. And you can waste so much time just talking about like, oh, what do you like to do? What movies? Like just fluffy.
What man, when I'm dating, I'm like, I sit down, I'm like, hey, I'm Jack. Tell me about your relationship with your father. I mean, I'm kidding.
First. Yeah.
I'm kidding a little bit, but not really. That was something that I used to get to definitely on a first date. Definitely.
And I would be like, he spanked me, but it gave me a lot of character and it's all good.
Perfect. Now I know exactly what's going on. Because you didn't say, well, I talked to him today and he was just here last week. and we're going to this other thing next month. I mean, I'm just giving you a hard time, but like you can there's signals that you can get. There's just ways to understand if you're conscious. And again, this consciousness is everything. Intentionality is everything. If you're just mindful and present with what you're doing, you are winning. You are winning and beating almost everyone, because again, everybody is just a passive. I mean, the NPC thing is legit. And if you can if you can bust yourself out of that and just act with intention in everything that you do, in your nutrition, in your finances, in your media consumption, in the personal relationships you develop, in the sexual relationships that you develop, in your relationships with your children, intentionality just takes everything that you do and turns it into gold, basically.
Absolutely. And to me, I don't feel like there's a lot of, it's like either you're a bodybuilder and you're like a gym bro, or you're not. You know what I mean? I don't feel like there's a lot of good, healthy like messages out there for guys. To me, it seems like it's very superficial. Either you're like jacked and swole, or you're like totally ignoring your body and deprioritizing it. So
that was one of the things that used to make me laugh a lot about the crybaby feminists, saying that media sexualizes and idealizes female bodies. I remember marking Mark like 10-story billboards with this 8-pack in his Calvin Kleins. Give me a break that men aren't objectified and aren't held to high standards and ideals as well. Although this dad bod thing, I think, is fake.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody who's like, yeah, I'm really into the dad bod?
It's more of a thing. Yeah, it's always said like in a joking tone. Like it's usually a woman making a joke. Like, I'm ready for somebody with a dad bod. Like, I'm going to let myself go too.
There you go. I'm ready for somebody with a dad bod is also code for I'm ready to stop playing around. It's time for me to get serious. I've waited so long that I need to actually look for that guy with a dad bod who's soft and he's a nice beta provider. That's what that means. That's what that means. It's the change in the perspective, the change in the hunt. But the dad bod, the real dad bod, is the one where you're jacked, you've worked out quite a bit, you got muscles, and you're not afraid to eat a little bit. That's the dad bod to have.
Yeah, nobody wants to hang out with a guy who's like, oh, I can't eat bread or pizza. Sorry. Like, that's not going to be a fun date.
I did sport a 6-pack for like 6 months, and it was a second job. Like no, for real. Like I did yoga every day. I did CrossFit and I did Muay Thai, and I was on a super strict diet, counted every single calorie. And it takes an enormous amount of effort for somebody with my naturally fat boy body. And so it was something that I did, and it was great, and it was a lot of fun, because all I really wanted to be at that time was I wanted to be objectified.
We all do.
This was me coming out of my divorce, and I was like, I just want chicks to want to get with me because I'm hot. So that's what I did, and it was worth it, and it was fun, and every guy should do it for a time period. But it's not sustainable for me. But being big and strong certainly is.
Have you found are you like monogamous with anybody yet, or you're still dating around?
Oh, no. I've been with the same woman. She and I've been together 7 years now. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And
She's awesome.
I guess she is good at the sandwiches and blowjobs and all the important woman things.
She's fantastic at all the above. No, in fact, that 12 Ways to Know She's a Keeper, she inspired that.
Really? Oh, wow. Oh, that's great. Does she listen to all of your podcasts? Is she like a big supporter?
She used to listen to all the podcasts until I just became insanely prolific. And then the truth is that most of those pieces that you skimmed through on that sex section, I wrote them and she edited them. And then I wrote my book, but she edited the book, and she did all the copy editing and all of the developmental editing. She didn't write any of the words, but she really helped me put it into structure and was like, no, you can do better than this.
Ooh.
and so she did a great job. She really coached me. She's a writer herself, and so her work is definitely in that book. Yeah, look at that. 237 ratings, almost all 5 stars.
Woo! Democrats, it's deplorable why 9 million Obama voters ditched the Democrats and embraced Donald Trump. This I'm definitely going to order it. This looks interesting.
And it's a little tiny bit dated right now, but actually most of it is way ahead of the game. It's not just about Donald Trump. In fact, it's really about the structural issues, all these things that we've been talking about. Dating and feminism and race and economics and globalism and immigration and various philosophies. And it's a comprehensive look at the world today. And it was relevant then. It's still relevant, and it will be relevant for a long time because it's going to be a snapshot of a momentous occasion. And also really a great description of all of these structural problems that we face and why they're just simply not getting any better.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because the structural forces are just pulling things apart, and there's nothing stopping any of these trends. There's nothing on the horizon that says to me anything is changing. In fact, the only change part that could be coming is just when things get bad enough that something really bad happens or the system just breaks completely. But as it stands right now, the polarization is going to continue, the degradation of the family going to continue, the queering of America, the white supremacizing of America, the struggle sessions for your kids in school, all of it.
Wait, what is the struggle? What is a struggle session?
So struggle session is from Maoist China, right? Where they would make people admit their loyalty, renounce all of their prior loyalties, and admit their loyalty to the Communist Party.
That sounds like Scientology.
Well, this is, Scientology uses, I believe, what do they say? What are your crimes? They like try to dig into your past and try to manipulate you that way. The Chinese are just like, or we'll kill you. So it's not quite as bad as Scientology, and you're not paying for it in China actually either. So Scientology is a weird thing. But the struggle sessions were when they would, get you to renounce all of your prior loyalties and to profess your loyalty to the Communist Party and adopt all of the ideologies and such. And if you didn't do it, they'd beat you and torture you, and they get your kids to rat you out and all these things. And so we're basically seeing the same thing happen here in our schools in America. We have all the schools across the country basically have adopted the critical race theory perspective. They've all adopted this idea that they need to be anti-racist. They've all adopted the idea that we exist in a system of white supremacy and it needs to be dismantled and yada, yada, yada. And if you don't agree with that, by definition, according to their system, you're still a racist. If you're like, yeah, I just don't see it that way, then automatically you're a racist. And until you admit that you're a racist, you're just a racist. And so that's what's happening in our schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. It's not just college anymore.
Do you wish that you were still working in the schools? Do you ever feel like you could make more of an impact if you were still?
No, I make way more of an impact now. Way more of an impact now. I had direct influence in the lives, 1,000 families or more. Thousands of people in the city, young children as young as 3 years old, all the way up to high school. I was the executive director of 2 different schools with multiple campuses, and we really made an impact on people's lives, no question. I reach millions of people now, millions of people. And the influence that I have now is far greater. It may be less direct and concentrated, but net, it's far greater. And I wouldn't trade this for the world. I am in the right place at the right time for me. I'm living my best life. I'm perfectly aligned with my mission, my values, the things that I do every single day. And if I was working in the schools, it just wouldn't have worked because I was incapable of keeping my mouth shut. I remember at the place I got doxxed from, just a few weeks before that, they had brought up the implicit association test or the implicit bias test. Yeah. And I was like, I've read an article by the author of that study who says that it's not, and it has no value in doing professional development and no value in predicting anything. And that test is bunk. And he said it, and he's the one who made it. And they were like, yeah, I don't believe that.
Wow.
There was just no getting through them. I mean, that place was so bad that in their equity and inclusion diversity committee meetings, like right on the board, it says no more white people.
Oh,
right?
God.
Like I have a picture. I have a picture of it on the whiteboard. No more white people or too many white people, something like that. I reported that and nothing happened. They just didn't care. So my days were numbered there anyway, because I just was incapable of keeping silent. But the impact that I have now is far greater, and to receptive ears, and with people who want to do something and take the information and turn it into action and improve their lives. And it's only going to get more so. I have some big, I can't announce it now, but there's a couple of things coming up that are going to be really big this summer. And this train we're just getting started, man. Just getting started. I have no idea what the next 5 years are going to be. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens. Sometimes everything has to be destroyed in order for you to get where you're supposed to go. And, you want to build communities, and you have a much bigger impact now. Do you tell us about the liminal order and if what people can,
so all these things we've been talking about, I'll help you out, Chrissie. all these things we've been talking about, the war on men, the anti-white stuff, the attack on masculinity, all these things demand a response. If we don't do anything, they will succeed in destroying masculinity if no one fights back. So somebody has to fight back. And one of the ways that we decided to fight back is by creating a men's organization, a group of men, a network of men who share common values. They believe in the power of masculinity, they believe in the power of brotherhood, and they believe in the necessity to have sovereignty, personal independent sovereignty. And so we have come together to help each other achieve these things through the power of masculinity and brotherhood to achieve sovereignty. And we have all kinds of classes and workshops and seminars. We have all kinds of meetings. We've had meetings in like 30 different places all around the world. We've had a number of national meetups. We've got one in May coming up in Illinois. We've got one in Las Vegas coming. We've had a number in Vegas. We got some in California. We've had meetings in England. We're international. We're all around the world. Wow. And the growth has been tremendous because people understand that bad things are happening to them. People understand that masculinity is under attack. People understand that they are deliberately disconnected from each other. There's no such thing as the Boy Scouts anymore.
It's so sad. My brother made it all the way to Eagle, and it changed his life dramatically. It really put him on the path of goodness early on.
Yeah. So those spaces are gone. So we've had to build a new one. We have to build a new one. And the things that have happened inside the Liminal Order have been incredible. We have built businesses. We have done initiatives across the country. We've done service projects. We've launched social media campaigns that have been community service oriented. We've helped a number of guys get in better shape, have better relationships, make more money, have more fun. And it's incredible when you get guys together of means and motivation who have the same values. Anything is possible then. Anything. Think about it today. What is the biggest obstacle to getting things done with other people? They're fucking politics, man. You get to know, you're like, oh, we could work together. Let's work together. And like 5 days in, you're like, oh, no, we definitely can't work together. And usually it's them saying it to us, right?
Right.
And so it is an obstacle to relationships. Politics are just in the way of so many things right now. So if you can just push all that aside, you get common values. Men, we're all pretty much 35, 55, married with kids, professional advanced degrees, middle, upper management, or entrepreneurs. And man, we are building stuff. And that's a masculine thing to do. We're builders and creators. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And when things are out of line and you're not like at your high vibration point, or when you're self-destructive, right? Like men are either building or they're destroying. And look at what's going on in cities all over the country. And it's just, you're just, I want to tell all these people it's you're not helping, you're just wasting your own time.
Indeed. So focusing on yourself and not worrying about all this political nonsense is like the first step. It's interesting for a guy like me who spends all day creating politically oriented content to tell you to stop worrying about politics if you don't have your shit together. But that's exactly what I'm saying. Turn off my podcast, stop listening to anything, lose the weight you need to lose, get your career in order, stop looking like a slob, clean your effing room, and then you can begin to worry about politics. You got to build yourself, then your family, then your community, and then maybe you can start worrying about the nation. And luckily for me, that's where I am, right? I am great. My family is amazing. I've literally built the community, and now I'm in position to have impact nationally. That's the process that you can do it in an authentic and holistic way that's going to have sustainability.
And Jack, if someone's interested in joining the Liminal Order, where can they go?
That would be liminal-order.com. Go down, sign up for our mailing list. You can't join unless you sign up for the mailing list anyway. New emails every month or every week. We'll explain everything about what it is and what you get. And even if you're not going to if you're not going to join the LO, if you're a woman, for example, you can join the mailing list and get our emails every week. They're great. And that's the process. We only let in 50 guys a month because it's a very heavily personalized experience. You have to be interviewed by all the other members. There's a whole extensive process to be onboarded. And so we can only process about 50 guys a month. And those spots go very quickly at the beginning of every month.
And even if you're not sure what your goals are and you're kind of just adrift, would you recommend it for those as well? Or just somebody who's like, oh, I know what I want, I just don't know how to get there?
We have some guys that I call are like mid-career transition. They built a life, but now they're making a transition. That's great, of course. But if you're young and you don't know what you're doing or where you're going at all with anything, and you don't have a career and you don't have a family and just worry about that for now, guys. We're looking for guys that have been able to really take care of themselves. If you're making a transition or whatever, that's fine. But we're not really a place for healing. Right. So if you're like broken,
no trust falls.
No, right. If you're broken, this is probably not the place. If you're ready to build and create, then this is definitely the place.
I love it. Jack, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
My pleasure, Chrissy. It's been wonderful.
And people can follow you on Twitter at Jack Murphy Live. Anywhere else where they can go?
I am Jack Murphy Live all over the internet. YouTube channel, subscribe there. That's a good place. I'm on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you get a podcast. Follow me on Twitter. Let's get me to 100,000. I'm at like 93,000. I'm ready for this.
Wow,
this
you're right there.
So, and Instagram, everywhere else. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Yes. And here is Jack's YouTube channel. A lot of really great little videos, good snippets from other conversations he has. A lot of Cerno on here. Big fan of Cerno. He was
There's a lot of clips, but there's also 53 long form interviews as well. We do one long form interview a week, plus then we do all the clips and stuff in between.
I love it. Jack, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Chrissy. Thank you for having me.
Talk to you soon. Bye.